The king was not supposed to die like this. Not choking. Not clawing at his own throat. Not staring in terror at the very people sworn to protect him. The goblet fell first. Then the silence followed. A silence so heavy, it felt like the entire kingdom had stopped breathing. Around him, the royal court froze. No one moved. No one spoke. Because they all saw it. The fear in his eyes. Not fear of death. But fear of something far worse. Something unfinished. Something hidden. The High Chancellor stepped forward, voice trembling. Your Majesty, your final will. But the king did not look at him. He looked past him. Toward the doors. As if expecting someone. Or dreading their arrival. His lips parted. Dry. Cracked. Bleeding. And with what little strength he had left. He whispered something that would destroy the kingdom. The second heir. The room went cold. The queen stiffened. The prince turned slowly. Second, what? Someone muttered. But before anyone could question it, the king's body dropped. Dead. Just like that. Gone. And with him, the truth they had buried for 20 years. Or so they thought. Because what they didn't know was that the king had already rewritten destiny. Hidden in ink. Sealed in silence. Waiting to be opened. A document that would turn blood against blood. And a kingdom into a battlefield. The codicil. Before we go deeper into this story, I want to know something real quick. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your city in the comments. And what time is it there? The kingdom of Valera was built on power. Not peace. Not loyalty. And certainly not truth. From the outside, it looked like perfection. Stone towers that touched the clouds. Golden banners dancing in the wind. A royal family blessed by legacy. But inside those walls, everything was rotting. At the center of it all was King Alden Royce. A man feared more than he was loved. He did not inherit a peaceful throne. He took it. Through war. Through blood. Through betrayal. And over the years, he became exactly what the throne demanded. Ruthless. Unforgiving. Untouchable. Or at least, that's what everyone believed. Because even kings have secrets. And some secrets refuse to stay buried. Queen Margaret Royce was not weak. But she was afraid. Not of enemies. Not of war. But of something much closer. Something she could never control. The king's past. She had heard the whispers long before she wore the crown. Servants talk. Guards gossip. And secrets always find their way into the dark. There had been a woman. Years before the throne. Before the crown. Before the perfect family. A woman no one spoke about anymore. A woman who disappeared. And with her, a rumor. A child. Prince Edward Royce was everything the kingdom expected. Tall. Sharp. Commanding. He walked like the crown already belonged to him. Because in his mind, it did. From childhood, he had been told one thing. You are the future of Valera. And he believed it. Not with pride. But with certainty. Dangerous certainty. He didn't just want the throne. He needed it. Because without it, he was nothing. And Edward Royce feared nothing more than being nothing. But what he didn't know was that his entire life, his entire identity, rested on a lie. Far from the castle walls, beyond the reach of gold and power, lived a man who had never known his name mattered. Lucas Vale. He wasn't born into privilege. He wasn't raised with honor. He didn't have a legacy. Only survival. Every scar on his body told a story. Every fight he walked away from was a victory no one celebrated. He had no family. No title. No future. Or so he thought. Because fate has a cruel sense of humor. And sometimes, The people the world forgets are the ones it was never supposed to lose. Lucas had always felt it. That something about his life didn't add up. The way strangers looked at him. The way doors closed before he could knock. The way opportunity always seemed just out of reach. Like the world knew something. He didn't. And soon. He would find out. Long before the crown. Before the wars. Before the fear that followed his name. King Alden Royce was just a man who made one mistake. And spent the rest of his life trying to bury it. Her name was Eliza Vale. She wasn't royal. She wasn't powerful. She wasn't supposed to matter. But she did. More than the king ever admitted. She was the only person who saw him before the throne changed him. Before power hardened him. Before he became someone even he didn't recognize. And for a brief moment in time, he chose her. Not the crown. Not the future. Her. But kingdoms don't allow men like him to choose love. They demand sacrifice. So he left her. Without warning. Without explanation. And when he returned, she was gone. No farewell. No trace. Just silence. And something else. A whisper. A child. Eliza didn't vanish. She ran. Far from the kingdom. Far from the king. Far from the danger that came with his name. And she raised the child alone. Lucas. She never told him who his father was. Not because she wanted to protect the king. But because she wanted to protect him. Because being forgotten was safer than being found. But safety never lasts forever. Eliza died when Lucas was still young. And with her, the truth died too. Or so it seemed. Years later, the king saw him. Not in a palace. Not in a court. But in the dirt. Fighting. Bleeding. Surviving. There was something about the boy. Something familiar. The way he moved. The way he refused to stay down. It wasn't just strength. It was defiance. The kind that doesn't come from training. But from blood. The king watched longer than he should have. And in that moment, he knew. Not from proof. Not from words. But from instinct. That boy was his. The king should have walked away. Pretended he saw nothing. Let the past remain buried. But guilt is a powerful thing. And regret is even stronger. So he did something no king should ever do. He got involved. Quietly. Secretly. He arranged for Lucas to be protected. Watched. Tested. Prepared. Not as a son. But as a possibility. Because deep down, the king knew something was wrong. Not with Lucas. But with everything else. Prince Edward was strong. But he was cruel. He was loyal. But only to power. And the king began to see it. The hunger. The entitlement. The lack of restraint. Edward didn't want to rule the kingdom. He wanted to own it. Control it. Bend it. And men like that don't create peace. They create ruin. So the king made a choice. A dangerous one. A decision that would outlive him. Late at night. Behind locked doors. With only one witness. The king rewrote his legacy. Not the will. That would be too obvious. Too easy to challenge. Too easy to destroy. No. He created something else. A codicil. A second command. Hidden. Sealed. Undeniable. It named Lucas Vale. Not as a rumor. Not as a secret. But as blood. Royal blood. And more than that. It gave him a claim. The room was still cold from the king's death. No one had spoken. Until the chancellor finally did. The will shall now be read. Prince Edward stood tall. Unshaken. Certain. This was his moment. His destiny. The Queen sat beside him. Composed. But her hands trembled. The scroll was opened. The seal broken. And the words spoken. The crown, and all authority, passed to Prince Edward Royce. A breath of relief swept the room. Of course. Of course it did. There was never any doubt. Until. Wait. The voice came from the back. A smaller scroll. Held by trembling hands. His Majesty left an additional document. The Chancellor froze. The Queen's eyes widened. Edward turned slowly. What document? The answer came like a blade. A codicil. Pause right here. Imagine you're in that room. You've waited your whole life for the throne. And suddenly, a hidden document appears. Be honest. Do you think the king had the right to change everything at the last moment? Or was this betrayal? Comment below. The seal was broken. And with it, the illusion of certainty. The Chancellor hesitated. Because once spoken, these words could not be taken back. But the law was clear. He had no choice. He read. By my command, let it be known. The room leaned in. That Lucas veil. Silence. Is of my blood. A gasp. Shock. Confusion. And shall be recognized as my son. The Queen stood up. No. Edward's voice dropped. What did you say? But the Chancellor kept reading. Because he had to. And by this codicil, he shall share claim to the crown. Chaos. Pure chaos. Voices shouting. Nobles arguing. Guards unsure who to follow. The Queen's composure shattered. This is a lie. Edward stepped forward, eyes burning. Where is he? Lucas didn't even know yet. That somewhere far from him. His name had just become a death sentence. Because power does not share. And men like Edward Royce do not forgive. The first order was given before the room even settled. Find him. Not bring him. Not summon him. Find him. Which meant one thing. Kill him. Word spread fast. Faster than truth. Faster than reason. A bastard. A threat. An impostor. By the time the message reached Lucas, it was already twisted. They're looking for you. Why? They say, you're royal. He laughed. At first. Because it sounded ridiculous. Impossible. But then came the soldiers. Not one. Not two. Dozens. And they weren't asking questions. They were hunting. It happened at night. Of course it did. That's when cowards strike. Lucas barely had time to react. Steel clashed. Fire burned. And for the first time, he realized something terrifying. They weren't trying to arrest him. They were trying to erase him. Lucas ran. Not out of fear. But out of understanding. Because now it made sense. The looks. The distance. The feeling that something was off. He wasn't just anyone. And someone powerful. Was terrified of that truth. Real question for you. Have you ever felt like the world was against you? Before you even understood why? If you have, hit the like button. Lucas stopped running. And started thinking. If they feared him, then he had value. If they hunted him, then he mattered. So he did something unexpected. He moved toward the danger. Toward the kingdom. Toward the truth. But power corrupts everyone. Even allies. The one person Lucas trusted. Sold him out. For gold. For safety. For survival. He was captured. Beaten. Dragged back. Not as a prince. But as a prisoner. Thrown before the court. Before the Queen. Before Edward. Before the throne. Edward looked at him. Not with curiosity, but with hatred. You are nothing. Lucas, bleeding, smiled faintly. Then why are you afraid? The codicil was undeniable. The resemblance. Unmistakable. The truth. Inescapable. Lucas was royal. And that made him dangerous. The queen made the final decision. Not the court. Not the law. Her. End this. No trial. No mercy. Because truth didn't matter anymore. Only control did. Lucas didn't beg. Didn't fight. Didn't scream. Because in the end, he understood something they didn't. They could kill him. But they could never undo what he was. The execution was swift. Quiet. Almost forgettable. Almost. Edward took the throne. But the kingdom never settled. Because whispers don't die. They spread. A rightful heir was murdered. A king's last wish was ignored. And slowly, the kingdom began to rot from within. Rebellion. Doubt. Fear. Because power taken by blood always demands more blood. If this story left you thinking, hit subscribe for more dark, powerful stories like this. And tell me, was Lucas a victim of fate? Or was he doomed the moment he was born?